We've got some breaking news out of the NHL. The Maple Leafs are sending Mitch Marner to the Golden Knights in a sign-and-trade deal. That's coming from multiple reports. Marner reportedly signing an 8-year deal with a $12 million average annual value. He was arguably the top free agent available when the market opens on Tuesday. I'm Tommy Tran, now joined by Pierre McGuire. We have a lot to talk about, a lot of action happening before this Tuesday window, Pierre. First and foremost, on the Marner thing, looks like they've been working on it for a few days here. What are your thoughts?
Well, they've been working on it for a few days for sure, Tommy. But here's the biggest thing that really matters a lot. Alex Pietrangelo is worth $8.8 million on their cap. He's going to go on LTIR, long-term injury, and so he will not be playing this entire year. He's severely injured. He requires at least 2 surgeries and maybe more. So that's 8.8 off the cap. That helps in the signing of Marner. Then you've got probably another player going to Toronto. It's going to probably be Nick Roy at $3 million. So that basically gets you to Marner's $12 million in year 1. And let's also remember they made a trade with Nashville where they moved. Where they got Jeremy Lauzon and Colton Sissons. So they've opened up some cap room for themselves in Vegas, which wasn't readily available until yesterday and even into today.
It's interesting. The odds makers do like Vegas on paper more than Toronto. If we stick with the Maple Leafs, how do they replace someone like Marner? In addition, I know we'll talk about Brad Marchand was a possible target. Now he's going to be locked up here, but what do you think the plan is in Toronto?
Well, the plan has already started. They got Matthew Nye signed on a 6-year deal for less than $8 million a year, so that's a real positive thing. He had 29 goals last year playing with Austin Matthews, so that's going to help them a lot. Then they got John Tavares to take a huge hometown discount on a 4-year deal. That's going to help them a lot. If they get Nick Roy in there, they're basically stabilized down the middle now. When you look at Austin Matthews, you look at John Tavares, and then you add Nick Roy, so that's a real positive thing for Toronto. They desperately are going to need a right winger to fill in what Mitch Marner's 103 points were last year. But one of the things I think will happen, besides getting Nyes and Tavares signed, they also have for them that's really positive. Austin Matthews was not healthy last year, Tommy. He'll be a lot more healthy this year, and because of that, I think he'll have a bigger offensive year. And so they'll be able to overcome a lot of Marner by committee. But I know they'll be actively out shopping to try to find a right winger that can take up some of Mitch Marner's offensive production.
I mentioned Brad Marchand, Aaron Ekblad, Sam Bennett. Those were the questions surrounding the champs here, Pierre, and we know Bennett got taken care of on Friday, and then all of a sudden today, Ekblad and Marchand are taken care of as well. What stood out to you about how these were able to get done?
8 years for Bennett, 6 years for Marchand, and then 8 years for Ekblad. So what we talked about a lot, a new trend in the league, you're seeing players get extra years, probably not more than 2, but right around 2 extra years. Rather than giving them more money, but to make these teams cap compliant, they're giving more term. So an older player now, where maybe they used to only give them 2 or 3 years, now maybe they give them 4 or 5 or 6 years so that they can balance out the AAV on the contracts and make themselves cap compliant. The cap's going up to $95.5 million this year, and supposedly next year, if everything goes according to plan in the NHL, it's going to go up over $100 million, which will be very beneficial for the players and obviously for these general managers. I salute the Florida Panthers, though, Tommy. What an amazing job done by Billy Zito and his entire management team. Creative, focused, intelligent, and more than anything else, giving themselves a chance to three-peat, which is unbelievable in the NHL.
I think you bring up a good point, because the shock factor of, like, Brad Marchand got how many years, and he's how old? Again, 37, which would take him well into his 40s, but you think he can play at least until 40?
I think he can play until 40, and I think he can play really well. At some point, the wheels will fall off, but Brad takes care of himself. He's a real proud man. He wanted to prove people wrong. He didn't like his season in Boston. He went from being a first-line player in Boston to a third-line player playing with Lustarin and Lundell in Florida and making a huge impact, obviously, in shorthanded play and power play. So I do think he can play longer. But I think the big thing coming out of all this, Tommy, and I think it's really important for hockey fans to pay attention to, the extra years that teams are giving players now You didn't see that a lot in the past. You're seeing it now. It's becoming a trend. And I think it's becoming a trend because teams want to keep players that they trust longer in their organization.
Just to your point of talking about that cap increasing to $7.5 million is the largest year-to-year jump that we've seen since '05 when sort of the structure came out here, Pierre. So do you anticipate that more teams are going to try to get into the mix, to be more competitive? How much action do you think we'll still see by tomorrow?
We're going to see action, Tommy. I think part of the problem, though, on the action is I don't know how many players are going to be available for the action, if that makes sense to you. You know, this is not a huge year for UFAs. Last year, we saw a lot more action, but we'll still see action. I think we'll see some bountiful action. Mike Greer, the general manager in San Jose, said something that I thought was really apparent. Now, I'm paraphrasing. It's not an exact quote, but he basically said, there are a lot of teams that think they're for real, and there are a lot of teams that think they can really compete. So look for a lot of action, whether it's through UFA transactions or whether it's through the trading process. And I think we're going to see a combination of that tomorrow, kind of like what we saw today.
What do we think about Bouchard today?
Evan Bouchard got obviously a huge deal with the Edmonton Oilers. It's over $10 million. It's exactly $10.5 million a year. It's more than what Noah Dobson got with the Montreal Canadiens after he got traded the night of the first round at the draft in LA. He got $9.5 million. So Bouchard gets $1 million more. Their numbers are pretty similar, actually, when you look at it long term. I think the biggest thing that happened there, Tommy, Connor McDavid and his agency, the people that represent him, they met up with upper management. They met with Jeff Jackson, the president of hockey operations, and Stan Bowman, the general manager, in Toronto last week. And I think Connor McDavid made it felt really surely and positively if he was coming back to Edmonton, he wanted Evan Bouchard to be back with him in Edmonton. Evan's a big part of their power play. Their power play was a massive part of their success throughout most of the regular season and into the playoffs, at least until the final when they lost to Florida. So I would expect, reading off of this, if Bouchard signs, which obviously he has, don't be surprised if Connor McDavid doesn't sign an extension here pretty soon with the Edmonton Oilers.
All right, we'll look out for that. Already some action on the eve of the opening of free agency. Pierre McGuire breaking it down for us here on HQ. Two-time champs open up as co-favorites to win next year's Stanley Cup. Panthers at 7-1, along with Carolina, who, by the way, will be among the teams with lots of salary cap space, looking to improve on their record and their advancement from this year. Of course, they lost to the Panthers in the Eastern Conference Final.